You're listening to the Sunnybrook Unscripted podcast, where we talk real life, answer questions, and take a deeper, practical look at the topics we talk about on a Sunday morning. To learn more about Sunnybrook Church, including our Sunday gathering times and opportunities throughout the week, visit us online at sunnybrookchurch.org. Today we are talking with Pastor Beth Moes.
Well, welcome back to the Sunnybrook Unscripted podcast. I am Lydia Miller here, not only with my dad, Pastor Jeff, I'm also here with my mom, Beth. I don't know, as I look at your two faces, which one of you is more nervous right now?
I think it's me.
You think it's you?
Really
I don't know. It might be me.
Delighted that she's here, but boy, to give her free reign of a microphone.
You don't often do that.
No.
We have invited, thank you for coming.
Yes.
We have invited Beth in. She has graciously agreed to come in. We are in a series right now on marriage and unpacking love and marriage, relationships, how to have a healthy marriage, what all of that looks like. And so we thought, what better way than to just peel back the curtain and show everyone both the glory and the dysfunction that exists in Pastor Jeff's marriage as well.
There's episode 1 and 2 right there.
And we thought that I would be the perfect host because if any of you throw out any baloney, I can go ahead and call you on it.
There you go.
You always have.
I always have. So why don't we start at the very beginning? And why don't we give everyone, you've been married for
40 years.
40, good job. That was the test. You've been married for 40 years. Now let's go back 40 years and talk about how the two of you first met. Go ahead, Mom.
All right, I'll go with that question. We first met, we were both camp counselors at a camp called Camp Manitoqua. And it was our first day moving in, and he would like to say there was this blonde god on the basketball court, but that's where I met him. It was on the basketball court at Camp Manitoqua. We were camp counselors there for the summer.
So how did you first approach your eventual wife, Pastor Jeff?
Probably just my basketball skills, I'm sure. Just drew her.
Needed no introduction.
Yeah. No, you were in a tight-knit community with regards to camp counselors, and we did meet on the basketball court, but then we became prayer partners. I thought she was absolutely adorable. I still do. And so I sort of pursued her. Two of us became prayer partners. The problem was we didn't pray as much as we should have at night. She wanted to kiss me all the time, so I had to deal with that.
And that's all the time we have for it.
Okay.
But yeah, we had the nice thing about it was, she had her cabin of girls and I had my cabin of guys, but you got to spend every day together, do ministry together. And so we got to know each other on a deeper level than probably most couples do. And that was really nice.
So you met, you fell in love. Take us through the first maybe year or so, dating, engagement, marriage. Give everyone just kind of a run through.
So dating, our very first date, I was reminiscing on that, what we did together, just the two of us, because you are around a lot of people the whole time when you're a camp counselor. We took 1-speed bikes that were on the campgrounds, rode them about 7 miles to a train depot to go to Chicago, got there early, lunch at Arby's, played in box cars that were on the tracks. I'm not sure what possessed us to do that, but now we're filthy. So when we went into Chicago, went to Lake Michigan, tried to wash and clean up a little bit, and just had a fun, adventurous day together. But because we met at camp, we weren't at the same college. And for 2 years then, we did have what was a long-distance relationship where I was finishing my schooling, he was finishing his schooling, and that part wasn't the greatest, but that's kind of what it looked like initially in our relationship.
That was the day before, and people won't realize this, but it was the day before cell phones, so you had long-distance phone calling. Mm-hmm. So we would charge some to our parents, some to ourselves, and we would rack up hundreds of dollars worth of bills. I think $500-$600 a month until our parents looked at us and said,
"Stop,
no more." So,
Yes.
And I mean, back that long ago, that's a lot of
Yes.
It was.
It's the only way to communicate, that and letter writing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So eventually, you propose.
Yeah, she went on Greater Europe mission, so she was involved in a mission project that was in Ireland. I spent the summer with an evangelism team with Wheaton College in Europe as well. Actually, the two of us met in Dublin, Ireland, so you had to do this through letters. So we wrote each other and said, hey, there's got to be a McDonald's in downtown Dublin, Ireland. Let's meet
On a
there.
main street. There's got to be a street that's considered a main street of Dublin.
Yeah, and so we met there. We talked a little bit about it, and when she came home, then I had bought the ring. I remember going with my dad to Pulse Jewelry downtown Holland, and I didn't have much money, so my dad kind of fronted the money for me, and then I paid him back slowly, but bought the ring, and then when she came home, I picked her up in Chicago because she had flown into Chicago with Greater Europe Mission, and then took her down to the Lakeshore, which is kind of where our first date was, and proposed to her. Although we always tell this story. This is really stupid on my part, but I left the ring in the box, so I put
In
it
his
in my
pocket.
pocket because I wanted to surprise her, but I put the box in my pocket too. So she kept looking at my pocket going, what is that? What is that? What is that? And finally, it's like, here you go. You knew
Yeah,
you were
no,
getting
this is what he said. Here, you knew you were going to get this eventually anyways.
If there is a story that describes the two of your relationship any better, that is perfect. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I would imagine it
She
would
did
go.
make me take it back and do it
Correctly, I
on
did.
one knee, so I
Yes.
did do that.
Also, not surprised by that. So you get married. You're in your first year of marriage. Take everyone through kind of that, because the first year of marriage, as any married couple knows, is usually the most difficult year of marriage. And you guys were off and away from family and had a lot. So talk through the first year of marriage. What was that like for you guys?
You know, they say that the first year of marriage can be like a honeymoon. Ours was not. And in many ways, I think our marriage was protected living so far away from friends and family, because there were times I wanted to leave and I'd go sit on the curb and I'm like, I have nowhere to go. I have to go back in and figure this out. So it was hard. And I think going straight into ministry, I always knew he was going into youth ministry, and that part sounded fun and exciting because I enjoyed camp. I enjoyed young people. But with that came a lot of other expectations that kind of took me by surprise. And he considered himself the expert at that. I wasn't from a church background. He was. So he would try to coach me in what I should do and what I shouldn't do. And that didn't go
Which
over.
I'm sure you did really well.
That didn't go over
Yeah,
very
if
well.
you know your mom. Not good.
No. So there were some challenges. Not going to lie, Jeff would agree with that, but I think that also was the best thing for us too. We really had to learn how to fight, basically, argue, and have it move in the right direction still. So it was good. It was good.
Yeah, I think for couples walking through it, sometimes that first year is easy. It wasn't for us. We were just two very different people, which is good. It's a positive. But to say that was an easy year, it wasn't. It wasn't that we were trying to be difficult. It was just I was raised different than she was. I had different interests than she had. We were different people. And when you bring them together, you have to figure out how that's going to work in your favor. So we struggled with that in the first years, just going, why does she say, why does he see that the way he does? And just the misunderstanding and all of that caused some real conflict. And I think adding ministry to that created a pressure, sort of a fishbowl that only created more tension, so to speak. So we often say to each other 40 years later, man, we're in love now, but I wouldn't give anything to go back to those first couple of years of adjustment. They were very difficult.
Talk to us about that adjustment, because a lot of couples find themselves in that. I think even many years down the road, couples still find themselves in that place of adjustment, of trying to figure out how do we coexist and let our differences be strengths for each of us. So what are some of the things you guys did for those adjustments?
I think our biggest reminder that one of the things we continue to try to tell each other is, and we'll even say it out loud to each other, different isn't wrong. And I think sometimes when we are different, we want to put it in a place of wrongness. And I think we're being a little more forgiving of each other and accepting of each other for who we are, and not that I have to be like him or vice versa. And then also finding ways to compromise in those situations. I think that's the biggest takeaway we've had. And then, one of the things that was asked of me, and maybe I'm pushing something in that I shouldn't, but we learned, I clung to don't let the sun go down on your anger. And I was taking it literally. And there was first year of marriage, we were arguing about something. I don't even remember what it was about. I don't even remember how it was resolved. But what I remember is him just going to bed. I was like, what the heck? So I went into the room and I turned on all the lights. I stripped the bed, took everything off the bed, and started vacuuming. I just remember thinking, we need to figure this out. And honestly, sometimes the best thing to do is just go to bed, because you're going to avoid saying something you regret later. You calm down, and typically in the morning you wake up and just kind of laugh and look at each other like, what was that all about? And sometimes you just need that moment of separation.
Yeah, and I think it would have been wise for us to have some better premarital counseling. We didn't spend much time there. We didn't prepare ourselves. I was just incredibly in love with your mom and thought that would solve everything. And we didn't get good counsel. We certainly had pastors and youth pastors in our life, but, they all go, well, he's in ministry, so I'm sure he doesn't need this. So we just didn't do those kinds of things, which didn't set us up to be able to figure out how different we were and to come to some sort of negotiation on them. But I do think, again, our differences have actually served as a strength in our marriage, strength in ministry, understanding from Mom what it's like to have people that don't know Christ in your family and give me a heart for the lost was just a real good thing. I was kind of this sheltered, churched kid, and I just thought we avoided conflict. That's just how we grew up, and she grew up just the opposite, dive into conflict. And so I think we learned from each other real well there. I think a couple of things we learned, though, in conflict was, never call each other names, never, take it personal. This is not about me. You're not wrong and I'm not right. It's just understanding each other, listening to each other, and walking through conflict. And our commitment to Christ and that common bond that we had in him I don't think, we always said early on in our marriage, we're just going to close the escape hatch on divorce. We're not going to bring it up. We didn't threaten each other with that. We were committed to Christ and we were committed to each other. And so we just walked through that the best we could, trying to be respectful of each other and figure it out. I sometimes thought to myself, can there be two more different people in a marriage than this? And, sometimes you go, well, why is she calling that white when it's clearly black? Is she just trying to be antagonistic? And we weren't. It was just, we saw the world from a different perspective. But 40 years later, I can say it's the greatest blessing of having stuck to it and walked through it.
And 40 years later, you've done it.
We did it.
You've done it.
So far,
4 kids, 40 years in the ministry.
We ain't giving up now.
Yeah. I love that. Well, we want to dive in further. We're actually allowing my mom to come to 2 episodes. You've done well so far, so we're going to invite you back for a second one. And we're going to dive more into marriage and ministry and life raising kids and get into a little bit of the later years of marriage with them. So we hope you'll join us for that.
If you were encouraged by today's talk, be sure to rate us and hit subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast. To experience other talks, videos, and live gatherings, visit us online at sunnybrookchurch.org or download the Sunnybrook Church app. And again, thanks for listening to the Sunnybrook Community Church podcast.